Okay, hi, how are you?
Oh, fine, thank you. I'm so
Andrea.
sorry. I've never been here.
Neither have I. So I was just like, well, I think this might be okay.
Shooting it raw?
Yes, shooting it raw.
Well, photography for me is to channel what I see and find important at the moment to other people.
Have you trained in photography?
I've trained in photography. I did I did everything. I was assisting, and I went to school, and then I was assisting again, and then I started my own business.
Oh, wow. So when you say you went to school, studying at university or more of a
Yeah, I studied photography at the London College of Printing.
Andrea, thank you for joining me. Nice to meet you. How about we talk a little bit about where we are right now? It's kind of dramatic and it's quite spectacular.
It is fantastic, actually, because the first time when I came to Hong Kong, I've never been here before, we were at the time living in Beijing, but I flew over here because my husband was working here, and we actually stayed at the hotel just here by the convention center.
Okay.
So, and I flew in, and the weather was exactly like this, and everything was grey. And my husband said, "Oh, it's such a pity because Hong Kong is so green. It's such a green city." And I was like, "Well, it's not. It looks totally grey." And it was this kind of weather for 3 days.
Yeah.
And then I flew out. But then when I came back next time, it was really green. So.
For sure. Okay, great. So have some coffee.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for joining me. I realize this is very... so right now we are outside. So in the background, somebody's listening is going to hear the helicopter and then the person watering the plants, and there's construction and phones, and so it's we're surrounded by a very noisy space, and who knows if this will work out. So it's an experiment.
Yeah.
It's an experiment. So, but I will say thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you.
I have to say that your photographs are... It's great to have people's slices, and you're a photographer. And how would you describe yourself, as a commercial photographer or as an art photographer?
When I started out, I wanted to look at myself as an art photographer. Along the way, I had to work as well, so then I became a commercial photographer. But I've always had time and dreams to do my own projects. So actually moving here to Hong Kong has been fantastic for me, because here I've been able to find time, because the way we live our life here, to work on my own projects, which is fantastic.
Okay, so for the first image, do you remember offhand what the title of this photo is?
Two dogs.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's kind of sepia, black and white. There's a photograph of some kind of, I would assume it's in Hong Kong, well, it's hard to know if that's traditional Chinese or simplified Chinese characters. But on the wall is a sign, so you can see a bit of Chinese. The image is of a sort of the entranceway, and there are these two, I'd call them chihuahuas, wearing very nice collars, I guess, sitting behind the glass door, just kind of looking. And then behind them is a very elegant, stylish looking... Is it a cafe? Is it a bookstore? What is it?
I actually think it's an architecture office.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Mm.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Is it in Hong Kong?
It's in Hong Kong, and is around the area where I live. I live in Saigon. So this is actually one of the picture, which is one of 100 picture that I actually right at this moment have an exhibition at the place called Sin Atelier.
Okay.
And I'm showing 14 framed picture out of 100. The rest are showed as a slideshow. And yeah.
This is one of the framed images?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Wow. And what is the theme of the show?
The theme of the show is I'm showing the daily life in Hong Kong. It actually started out almost a year ago when the virus broke out, and I actually even got more time because I remember in the beginning you were not supposed to go out in the streets a lot and try to avoid a lot of people. So what I did was that I started to do night walks, actually in the middle of the night. So and I gave myself the project 100 days. So I decided to take one picture and post on social media to look forward, because I was thinking after 100 days the virus must be gone. And everybody kept saying that, when the summer comes, the virus will be gone, it's going to be warmer and blah, blah, blah. And and everybody knows that really didn't happen.
Yeah, I know. Here we are 368 days later, or whatever. Yeah. So the photograph it might just be my laptop that we're looking at it on my laptop. So, but the sort of is it printed in this kind of sepia tone, or is it like it's a very warm black and white?
Yeah. So this kind of technique, I went back to what I learned and did in school. Mm-hmm. So this is a lit print.
Okay.
And everybody who knows, who has been working in the darkroom knows the technique. Mm-hmm. It's actually that you overexpose the paper and then you develop the picture in a very diluted developer. And it's a certain kind of paper and it's a certain kind of developer. So this is the way the image turns out, a little bit warm, yellowish. And then after that you can tone it, you can selenium tone it, so it becomes a little bit crispier and a little bit more magenta in the shadows. But Anton Corbijn, for example, he became really famous doing this kind of technique with the pictures of you two during Joshua Tree.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so sometimes I've used this word in the past, and I've definitely used it on the podcast and while describing images, is that it's a black and white that's practically delicious. And it's an interesting, because you're shooting through a glass door, so there's the reflections. Basically, these two dogs, it's a happy accident where one of the dogs is looking at the photographer, and it's almost like they're judging you. They're almost like looking at you like, yeah, who do you think you are?
Exactly. And you see that dog there is actually looking up at the man walking here.
Right.
He looks really big and scary. Uh-huh. And the dog looks really scared as well. It's so funny.
Yeah. So what has the reception been to your show? I mean, because in a way, as artists, we get inspired by what's happening in our lives and in our kind of immediate or in the culture and all this stuff. So what has the response been to your photographs?
It's been very good. I'm so thankful. The response has been so good, and I couldn't have asked for more. I mean, They've been writing about it in the Chinese media and on the social media, and I mean, I'm from Sweden, so the Swedish community and the Swedish chamber and the consulate, everybody has been writing so nice words. So I've been.
If you think about all of the positive comments and reviews, which one stood out that you thought was closest to your spirit, to your thinking, to your, I mean, like where somebody said something, we said, okay, they really understood. That's hitting a nerve.
Yeah, in fact, it is. I've heard it a few times. I just couldn't say the name of the persons.
That's fine.
But when I tell them that my project has been that I've been out taking pictures every day for 100 days and have come up with this kind of result, they do understand that it's hard. It can be difficult to find a picture that is valuable for what kind of project you have every day. Or you have to move around and you have to just be very in a good stage to actually see this picture.
Sure.
Or I actually say that you're given the moments.
Okay.
And if you are in tune with yourself, you are actually able to see it.
Right.
And it's up to you in a second to catch it or not.
Right. Okay. Let's move on to the next photo. While we listen to the cappuccino being made. The reason why I met you is because the director of the Swedish Chamber said, "Oh, you have to talk to Andrea." I was like, Okay. So I look at these images, and here's another great, photograph that... Is this part of the 100 series?
It's not.
No,
it's
not.
actually an older photograph, and it's also done in the same litho printing technique that I wanted to show you. Yeah. So the way I take pictures when it's kind of the same theme.
Sure.
Yeah, and so this is taken when I lived in London.
Okay.
And the whole Madonna picture here is symbolize, I think, myself, the way I look. I do view, how do you say that in a nice way? I watch a little bit behind.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like filter.
Yes.
Okay, so the image is really beautiful. So this is a normal human being. This is a human being or a mannequin?
It is a person.
Okay, it's a human being. It's a person. Okay, so it's a woman with very nice makeup who's clearly, the eyebrows are nice, and you can't. Okay, so she's wearing a scarf or something, and it looks like almost like a shredded fabric that's veiling over her face. So her shoulder is exposed, but this fabric or whatever, it's hard to... It almost looks like a very fine spider web. It's so thin and sheer. So you can see her face underneath it. But around... So it's black and white again. Around... Other than this fabric or whatever it is on her face and her, everything around her is totally black. And it's very close up. So as an image, it sort of invites you in this very sort of intimate... We're right there, right? So when you made the photograph, you either... I can't really... I could probably guess what kind of lens you used, but I'm assuming you're pretty close to your subject. I'm assuming... So what was the moment that you made this photo?
Yeah. Well, it's actually... I am in the studio taking the picture, and I started out, and my favorite format still is medium format. Mm-hmm. Before I shot only with Mamiya and Hasselblad. So it's 6x7, for example, is my favorite format. So this is a planned studio shot. And
was it for a magazine? Was it for her?
No, it was for myself.
Oh, it was for you. Very nice.
Yes,
okay.
Yeah. This is a person I know, and she's an artist. So we were working together,
right,
doing projects together.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's a very cinematic image. Like in my mind, it could easily be a still from an old Egyptian movie. Like this is just like in terms of, I connected to what I've seen. So it could be, I don't know where she's from. She could be Egyptian. It's that it could very easily be that kind of still. Okay, I say to you, open book. You can talk about anything.
Yeah,
we can do anything.
Yeah.
Pick 4 photographs.
Yeah.
And you're just like, 4 photos. I don't know. Hold on. We'll let the truck pass by.
It is one of the best pictures I've taken. It's one of my favorites, I think. Right. So that's also one of the reasons I picked this one. Yeah, I think I like the image. I like the... I think if I try to dig really deep, it could be that I might want to see myself in there. I see myself, but it's shield, and I'm Swedish, but I was adopted.
Okay.
I am adoptive, South Korean adoptee.
Okay.
Yes, and
as a baby or as a child?
As a child, one of my first memories are actually in Sweden. I don't have any memories from Korea.
Okay.
At all.
But you left at what age?
Probably I was around 2.5, 3 years old.
You would never remember anyways. I mean, all that stuff is gone.
Yeah.
It was never there. So it's interesting that... Okay, so what is this fabric?
It's just a black fabric. A shawl. Silk.
Oh, it's a silk shawl?
Yeah.
It looks like... It's like a really interesting choice of fabric because it's like on the one hand, on the edges of the fabric, you can see that it's knit, and yet over her face... It's practically like it's so thin. It almost looks like the cobwebs or spider webs. So it gives that feeling of old time. Yeah, and clear. Look, it's one of your preferred photos.
Yes.
And sometimes explaining it ruins it. So, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, well, maybe you just like it because you like it, and it touches something.
Yeah.
But it is a beautiful image.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you want to see it, go see it on the website or all that stuff.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's just it's really fantastic. Yeah. Let's go to the next image.
Yeah.
Another still from a movie, but but obviously not. But what's this photo?
So this is also one of the photos from the exhibition I'm having at the moment. That, by the way, is called A Visual Journey to Unveil Another Tale of the City.
A visual journey to
unveil another tale of the city.
Okay. Nice. And so this was made in Hong Kong again?
It is made in Hong Kong,
and it's on, what's that street? Something street.
Mercy Street.
Mercy Street, okay. So the image is the sort of a throwback to another time, you could say, because it's black and white. It's got, it's the inside of a diner. It looks like a diner. There's the neon Chinese characters. There's a woman standing inside looking at the photographer through the window. She's wearing a mask, which is just, in a way, is part of reality now. Hidden away down the alley is a guy, and clearly this is really great printing and great exposure, where you're careful to print this person, of course, on his phone. Everybody's on their phone.
Yeah.
You can just see the hint. He's wearing his mask.
Yeah.
And so where along the 100 days, what number would this be?
Oh, I don't even know by heart, but I could easily say that is a number sometimes in the end, I think.
Towards the end? Okay.
Towards the end, yes. It could be something like 86.
Okay, 86. I love it. I did a series.
It is 94.
94.
No, 94. Sorry.
It's fine.
Yes.
No, it's great. Like, in a way, art is also created by the spectator. So, you made the image. You were sort of taken by the scene in the moment. You didn't play. Like, the woman isn't a model, but everything about this image is just beautiful, so rich and dense. And by looking at it, I can, my immediate reaction was, it's a still from a movie and all this stuff, right? So, as a photographer across your life, when did you get a reaction from the outside world that said, wow, you did something powerful? Can you think of a photo, or can you think of a moment where something about the photography that you created really sparked some kind of realization or some kind of awakenings?
I started quite early. I have a photographer. My stepfather is a photographer, so I was given a camera quite early. I started already when I was 7.
Wow.
But it was towards when I became a teenager, like when I was 16, 17, when I started to become more interested. I developed my own black and white film and worked in the darkroom, things like that. I think I would say around my 20s.
Okay.
Yeah. So actually quite late. And it is, see, the thing, it is funny. I always took pictures, but after school, I was out traveling. And I went to Israel, I went to Egypt, and I became really sick.
Oh, that's nice.
I became really, really sick. So I got meningitis.
Oh, wow.
In
Egypt?
In Egypt, the bacterial
infection.
Yeah, bacterial one. So when I came to and I was, after 2 days, I was in a coma.
Sure.
So, and then when I was sent to the hospital, they told my friend, she has about 10% to survive this.
Yeah.
And I was really sick, so I was in the hospital for 3.5 weeks and then flown right back to Sweden. So then it actually took a year and so for me to slowly recover. And reading that I used...
I think we have to wait while the speaking of Israel and combat helicopters.
Funny.
You know, I look Israeli because I am Israeli.
Yeah.
So yes.
So I was flown back to Sweden. It took me about a year to recover, and reading and things that I really enjoyed before became more difficult. So I actually focused more on the visual thing. So actually, after that, I also worked. You know, when you work with the Hasselblads and big format camera, you see the picture upside down and
reverse.
flip.
Yeah.
Yes. So I did that for many years. It's not until I had to work with the small, medium, the 35mm cameras. Sure. I started to work the right way.
Really looks like.
Yeah. So I really had to work hard actually to do that, because I easily would work upside down and flip.
Okay. But that's an interesting point. Working in black and white is itself kind of a step away. Like, it forces you to look at the world as a kind of aesthetic, formal. You know, it's like one step removed from how you actually see.
Yeah.
So maybe even though it's in color and you're looking through the medium format prism that's also flipped and so I can see now. How does that relate to this image? Or does it relate to this image? Where what's really interesting is that the composition is just perfect. It's just, you clearly know what you're doing. Like, this is just, it is just a hyper beautiful, aesthetically pleasing photograph. So is your process when walking around to break things into light and shape and like, do you do that as you see, or do you kind of just go with the flow?
Lights and shadows and reflections are. I see that already. Yeah. So I think for a lot of photographers, I mean, it's our gift.
Sure.
Yes. I can quite easily, the way I see it, decide whether I want to have it if I see it in black or white or color.
Okay.
I can see both.
Right,
it doesn't really, But this, for example, I don't read Chinese character, but the gallerist, Xin Xin, she said that this is a really nice way, because it says, I love slow cook food, and here is a double happiness sign.
Oh, okay.
Which obviously is really nice together.
Right. Okay, so Andrea is basically pointing to I like slow cooked food in Chinese characters out of sort of classic neon. And then the name of the restaurant is called the Hangout Corner, I guess.
Yeah.
And then when she was pointing to the double happiness character is just outside the building on maybe the entranceway to an apartment building or something. So and that's not at all, that's not a neon sign. So yeah, some images you kind of feel like whoever made this image is clearly a photographer. Just the attention to the exposure, and like I said before, the way it's printed, where you see this one guy off in the alleyway, just barely in the light, checking his phone or whatever. I mean, there's such a depth and richness that I appreciate very much.
Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. Yeah.
Let's move on. Already, fourth photo. Okay, so here's what's really interesting. So I started chasing after you. Yeah. And I said, send me images. And you're like, okay. Yeah. And so you sent me images. And then one of them came to me and I was like, okay, so this is the image. So this one's in color. But it's almost like, what's that called? Like color vision from like the 1960s, 70s movies, in the cinemas where the color is all really rich and saturated. And it's you got a tree on the left that is essentially dead, so it's got no leaves. It's just the trunk and it's very gray. The sky has these very rich, fluffy clouds. It's dark blue with bright white clouds. There's grasses and what looks like dandelions. It's very romantic. And in it, there's a woman with a very pale dress. I don't know what's on her head. Is it another veil of sorts?
It's a hat.
It's a hat.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then she's holding up, I'm assuming, flowers. Now you're going to send me the right image for me to put on the website.
Yeah.
And yet what I received was like, is this the right image? Because it's fine, but it's there's this, the whole thing's out of focus and blurred, which is kind of, I mean, okay, so let's put away the out of focus blurred thing and imagine you remember is it totally sharp?
It's super sharp.
You
almost too sharp. It's almost too sharp. So actually it is nice when you see it a little bit blurry. Yes, it's super sharp. It's shot in a beautiful day down the river Thames in outside Guildford, actually. And I saw this tree. And I was struck by the tree, and the tree was struck by the by the light.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, but that's why it looks so dead.
So you're what by the tree? You're.
No, I just did a word. Yeah.
So what is the word that you use? Like, I'm not sure I caught it.
No, I said that I was struck by the tree,
okay.
And the tree was struck by the light.
By the light. Okay, got it. Okay, is she placed?
I placed her there.
Okay.
Yeah. This is a fashion shoot.
Okay.
And I saw the tree and I said, I'm going to have to take a picture.
Of course.
Yeah, so I put her there. So it's not a picture that was for the actual brand we were shooting. It was just behind the scene picture.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why is this representative of your work?
I like it. I do like when I take pictures to put a lot of symbolic things in there.
Okay.
Yeah, and double symbolic. And here, for example, you have this beautiful tree. It's obviously dead.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to look at the positive side of it. It could go both ways here, actually. Yeah. I can see.
Sure.
That you have all the nourishment that comes from the ground. But here, it's the beauty and the nourishment goes through the girls instead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the reactions I've had is that, this could be a still from a movie. This is so cinematic. This is so dramatic. Thinking about all of the other people who have been on the podcast in terms of the other types of photographers, everybody's different. But you're different in a very kind of different way. And does cinema have an influence on how you think and see the world?
I watch a lot of cinemas. Yeah. A lot of movies. I think it affects me that way that I can get very inspired by them and the cinematic and colors and moods. I learn.
Okay.
Yeah.
But or is it just maybe it's just baked into the format, right? The camera format, right? The medium format camera maybe just has that feeling. Somebody who'd look at these images, they're very classical in a sense. So in terms of your aesthetic, right? Yeah. So what have you learned in terms of art theory, art history?
I did study. I've learned basic knowledge, how you can work with symbolic and structure in photographs to be able to communicate what you want. So I also have I've studied communication, which is also good if you do work as a photographer.
Yeah.
And I still have to say that it is, well, I've been working for many years, and I've been taking pictures for many years, and it keeps you need to practice. I should take pictures every day.
Sure.
Because it's still something that, even if I've been doing this for many years, it's something that you need to do practice.
Well, for sure, and
to keep up.
Okay, so as a practice, the previous guest was somebody who has a lot of experience, not as a photographer necessarily, but a lot of experience, for example, teaching judo, a lot of experience. So we talked a little bit about mastery. A mastery of anything, by definition, means you're using it, you're doing it. It's like a practice. It's like it's involvement. And so, I'm not trying to put you on the spot to sort of say, to dive into your head, but it's more about how would you say, after this many years of doing photography, has your mentality shifted? Because, for example, is a 25-year-old you, would she have been able to have made this series of the 100 days?
No, I don't think so. If I have to answer this, I do think that it is some.
You don't have to answer anything.
It is. I do search. I'm searching.
Okay.
Yeah. So it could be some searching for my identity.
Okay.
And I do think that through the pictures I take pictures of, I try to imagine to see through their eyes.
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. It could be a dog. It could be
Sure.
a person. It could be anything.
Okay, so the question that to me begs to be asked is: so have you been to Korea? What is your connection to that part of your identity, even though it was turned off?
Yeah, I've been to Korea a lot.
Yeah, but it's beautiful. So yeah,
Yes, I love it as well, and I've been taking a lot of really good pictures that reminds me about this actually.
Okay.
So and it was for me, especially the first time when I came there, it was interesting to see the way I took the pictures, whereas 10 years later. But even though I went back to Korea later in my life, in my adult life, how can I say? I'm
Say it in Swedish. Say it in Swedish, please.
I've come to terms with my own identity.
Okay, of course. Well, that's a maturity thing, right? I mean, you get. It's also a reflection of our age and our experience.
Yeah. But because before I only felt Swedish, and then I went back to Korea, and I felt only Korean, and then after some years after that, I realized, well, I don't have to be anything. I mean, I could be just me.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, what would you say? Because look, I don't know anything about Sweden, but I understand that there's a sort of an ethic or aesthetic or a history of design that, you know, most people think, oh yeah, Sweden, IKEA, it's like the cliche, but the role of design in Sweden, to me, seems to be extremely well articulated, and people seem to understand it. Or not. I mean, so that's as an outsider. So what do you feel is very Swedish about your work?
If I understand you right, design...
By the way, my questions are never easy to understand.
The way I understand you is you're trying to say that a lot of Swedish design is very simple and clean?
Maybe, yeah.
Yes.
Maybe.
Maybe, if that's how we talk about it. And when I take the pictures, I do try to find the essence to make it as clean as possible.
Sure.
Not too much things around.
Yeah.
Try to
Uncluttered.
Closer.
Yeah.
For example, if you look at Picasso, for example, in the beginning when he was painting, it was very detailed and a lot of things happening. And the more he drew, you know, the more simple the paintings turn out. So that's what I'm trying to say. That I'm aiming, or I think that I like that. Yeah, to get rid of all the things.
Okay, so you say that, and then I think about your images, and so in the series, I don't think it has anything to do with what the subject in the image is, right? So, for example, the first photo has the two dogs with the reflections in the glass, and behind it, this architectural building. It's somebody who's looking at it might think it's really busy, but then looking at the photo of the woman with the veil that's very pared down, then the photo of the woman in the cafe, and then the last photograph of the woman by the tree. Like, so when you describe it as a kind of a process of looking at the scene and pulling out what's not necessary, I really I feel like I understand what you're trying to say, in that maybe that's what it is about why it reminds me of movies and cinemas, because in a movie, on a set, everything is placed. Like everything is there for a reason, right? And so this image of the cafe, it looks like everything was put there. You know, it was like it was composed.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it is. That you really have a sense of, well, I'm going to look at this or present this in a way that that really takes out all the garbage or the noise or whatever. Yeah. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
Yeah. I that's the way I work. I mean, if you look at a lot of pictures that I would pick out on my own, which I like. Mm-hmm. That's
What about? So part of the podcast is to inspire. So other people kind of my idea of the podcast is I just go and I meet interesting people who are doing really cool stuff.
Yeah.
And then they tell me their story. We talk about their work, and then maybe, who knows, that will inspire somebody else, right? So what? So your stepfather got you started in photography, but can you think of something or someone that really affected your development as a? And to the listener, I'm really sorry about the noise, but there's like helicopters, boats, everything. But anyways, we're doing our best.
Yeah, I at college in London. One of the last weeks we had our own mentors, and this guy I know he was named. I remember his name was Peter. I don't really remember his last name, but I'd met him 3 times before, and then I showed him my final portfolio for him, and just the way he saw my pictures, 13 pictures, was. The review or the reaction was so nice. I mean, it was so fine and great, and I was able to become so happy and how can I say? He really was able to understand that I was able to work and as a photographer, and he really was able to see the pictures the way I wanted them to be seen. So it was very important for me to be able to continue. I've told this story to other people, so because it was one of the reasons I got such good confidence at the time was because of his review on my portfolio.
Right. Now, are you a mentor to other people, or are you just, I'm not going to be a mentor to anybody?
Sorry, Are
you a mentor to somebody, or... Stay away from being
I can be. If someone wants me, I can.
Really?
Absolutely.
That's great.
Yeah.
So like in terms of what I do for my living, a lot of what we talk about is the importance of masters and apprentices, right? So a mentor and a mentee. So I can totally see how as you're telling me this thing, I was just like I was like, confidence. He gave you the confidence. Like, I could feel it coming up, because sure enough, it gives you the bravery to say, hey, wait a second, maybe I'm allowed to do this.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that people around me didn't say or like my photographs or could see my skills, but it was something about him that really, really gave me the true confidence to believe that I was doing the right thing.
Andrea, I love it. I really love your work. It's my first time really looking at your work, and I definitely appreciate it. So good to meet you.
Thank you. You too.
Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting